proposals for a political program that could form a basis of a national-wide coalition of political and social forces that could usher in a new and better future for all the long-suffering the people of Uganda. The proposal is now popularly known as, even then was known as 10-point program, and whereby they came affronting democracy. They were fighting for security, national security, consolidation of national unity, and elimination of all arms of sectarianism, defending and consolidating national independence, building on an independent, integrated, and self-sustaining national economy. We are going to look at how they have been working to the restoration and improvement of social services and the rehabilitation of the war-revenged areas, the elimination of corruption and misuse of power, redressing errors that have resulted in the dislocation of sections of the population and improvement of others. But not forgetting, they also came affronting the idea of cooperation with the African countries depending on human and democratic rights, where our brothers in other parts of Africa, they are promoting the Africanism, the nationalism, the spirit of patriotism, not forgetting economic strategy, which is about mixed economy. How far have they gone with this 10-point program? How far have they made this promise that they made to the people of Uganda? And we see in 1986 still, on 29th, in front of Parliament when President was inaugurated, a fundamental change. That was the one of the speeches that President Museveni gave. What are those changes that have been realized at the NRM since they came into power? We're going to have a very wonderful discussion that I believe, and then you can join the conversation later on 776-511-426. The number that you can reach us on and be part of this conversation is 0776-511-426. And for those who cannot call and you'd have to send your messages, you'll also be part of the conversation and share your views on 0701 24 26 47. The number that you shall send on your messages is 0701 24 26 47. In the studios of UBC, it is a very big privilege and honor to have great men, the genius of this country, who are going to help us digest this topic for all of us to really understand. A privilege and honor to have Honorable John Masila, MP, Bovilo East. Most welcome to UBC Ground Zero, sir.
I want to say thank you again. It's a good morning to everybody, and I hope the people of Bovilo East and Bugisu region are generally okay. When I left yesterday, I left them while fine. It's only that number of deaths here and there. In my constituency, amounting to about between 20 to 30. The mortality rate is quite high, but I can see it elsewhere in the whole of Bugisu region. But otherwise, good morning. I'm Rasta Musila John, His Majesty Emperor Selassie Ja Rastafari.
Interesting. I really expected that, and that gives me a vibe, as most people say, of this generation.
Who Ja blaze no money curse.
Wow, interesting. I wish we can know the meaning of that.
Oh, who Ja blaze no money curse. When you are blazed with Ja, nobody will curse you.
God, that God is Ja.
Yes, yeah. Like you say, hallelujah,
Yes.
Yahweh, like that, or Jehovah,
Interesting.
Ja.
I've started even to learn from you.
All right, thank you.
Another guest in the studios of UBC is Dr. Christopher Rwanga, is the head of ideology, research and documentation, coming from Uganda People's Congress Secretariat. Most welcome to have you, sir, on the show again.
Thanks very much, Comrade Ampaire Amon, for hosting us this morning, and the entire UBC Grand Zero fraternity. I deliver messages of goodwill for New Year from our party president, Honorable Jimmy Akena, MP Lira East, UPC fraternity at 6th floor, and the entire Uganda and the world. We are saying that let us be positive in 2023 and we secure a better future for humanity.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Most welcome, sir. In the studios of UBC, we also have Bakira Fupa. Michael is the programming officer of UBC Butebo, a man that I've known for years, for knowing more than around 50, I think, languages in this country. Most welcome on the show again, Mr. Fupa.
Okay, thank you, Bwana Amon. I'm grateful and I'm happy to be here again this morning. And specifically that I'm with great people. I hope to learn and also contribute. I greet you, listener outside there. I am praying that today is going to be a different day, and definitely we are going to share great ideas. I'm happy to be here, Amon.
Most welcome, sir, and we're also happy that you have joined us, and we believe still that we are going to have a wonderful discussion reflecting on reasons to celebrate 37 years of NRM or NRA Liberation Day. Most of you seem to have been there according to the look and the age when Uganda was experiencing this kind of excitement. People of Uganda have seen more often the youth especially celebrate, actually not youth, but the elderly, people of your age, from 50 and above. They celebrate the national resistance, Army or NRM Day, the Liberation Day, more than other days, not even comparing it to independence. And a youth outside there would be excited to know why. Why is it important to celebrate the national resistance movement or Liberation Day more than other days? How significant is it? How important is it? What was the situation then? When we hear of the struggle, when we hear the liberation, when we hear that we are celebrating, to me it brings me a feeling and thinking that we had the bad regimes, we had the bad leaders, we had bad institutions, we had everything was bad then. Now that someone took up arms and decided to liberate the people of Uganda, is worth to celebrate. I would love to know what was this, the situation then, that we really think that NRM indeed liberated us. Let me start with you, Honorable John Masila.
Thank you so much, Amon, and the listeners.
First, take us through the UPC before the NRM, before we come to 1980, when there was a disagreement out of the elections then.
Very good. You see, the moment you make younger people like you, Amon, you make and position your mind to know history, then we will have a great country. The moment you dismiss history, and you go to the history of the Americans in Zuckerberg, you are on WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, the country is lost. I was quite young when the second regime of UPC took power. Actually, I was in primary, around there, by 1980. Then in 1982, that's when I joined this S1. And we moved on, and I saw something at least. My mental faculties were quite clear enough to make me remember most of the issues. At the time, possibly I would say we shouldn't have had a democratic regime. We had had Amin from 71, and the upheavals then, the war and everything. But after 11th of April 1979, after the UNRA, Uganda National Liberation Army, took over the reins of Uganda, it was a conglomeration of so many other parties and armies. One was Kikosi Malumu, which was headed mostly by Obote and other people, the Oito Jok and others, the former UPC actually. Then there was the Fronasa group, which was somewhere headed by Museveni at the time. Then other small armies. So it was a conglomeration. It was just a simple gather up of so many armies and the Moshi spirit, which crafted them into what they called Uganda National Liberation Front, and headed by Lule when they entered here. You will know that usually in political science, movements, once they achieve the core aim, usually they again go back into disarray, whether in individual political parties or armies or anything like that. For those of you who have read history, you have known this from the Italian unifications, the German unifications, like in Italy, the red shirts, the black shirts, whatnot. I don't know what was there then in that history in the 1870s. But in Uganda, we also experienced that kind of thing. Now, second UPC had a problem gathering all these groups, collecting them to take this country forward at that time. It became very hard. Remember that we had just had a very, very rough regime of Idi Amin, the arrests, the killings, and whatever. Now, many people thought it was their time on revenge. Many of them, especially those who came from outside. They thought that was their chance to settle scores, 1, 2, 3. However, Dr. Bota at the time, as always, a very, I should say one of the best orators this country has had, by the way. I would unite them through rhetoric and everything like that. And astutely, of course, he did his best to unite the country, which was ununited, I should say, if that word is there in English anyway. But he tried his best. Things came to the end when at one time, I think in 1984, I was in S3 or so, when he said, some of these army factions don't belong to me. You see? It caused the problem. We had the elite forces from Teso, led by Peter Otai. We had, of course, Oito Jok and others. Then we had this ring from Acholi, who thought they were punished more than anybody else, and led by the Okeros, the two Okeros. Now, the army started to fracture, and using the president's rhetoric that he had denied them. This is what I saw and heard. Although, of course, at the time, this was the only radio, by the way. I'm happy that you have invited me back here. At the time, we did not have...
Making history.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, this is something which we have moved with for all this long.
Yeah, sure.
Ever since we were children. At the time, it was Voice of Uganda. That's what I used to hear. And even when my father was would have a set, he would tune in and neighbors would come.
And gather.
And gather around. If it was not Voice of Uganda, then it would be German or BBC. Exactly. And then for all of us from the border, we would listen to Voice of Kenya, like that KBC with the Leonard Mambo Mbotela commenting and whatever. He's quite now very old. So the started to fracture. Now, even the front in Ruwero was fledgling. That's how now Museveni is able to coalesce and unite the forces in Ruwero. Now, the Okelos is as if they somehow left the front in Ruwero, and that was the only worst front they had. In Buganda, around the central here, yes, Kaira was there, Kwanga was there, but maybe they were not as formidable force, army force, as that of President Museveni now. Now, they went to one Colonel, I remember at the time, called Colonel Ogole. Many of the soldiers came from my side, and I remember very well. Now, you asked me as to what were the problems. I wish to say, with my own eyes, I saw cassettes, records at the time. We used to call them cassettes, musical instruments, big ones. There was this popular one called the Sankei. I don't know whether they are still in production. And these soldiers from my side in Magale and Bumbo would come with them. There is one crop, he's now an old man. We have Lawrence Wamukota and others who would carry them. Where did they get them? Through looting, killing, and everything like that. I saw with my own eyes children, as girls as young as 10 to 12, having been raped and married to soldiers by force. But from here, I saw it. And some of them maybe are there. I have one lady whose husband was killed and they got married to my cousin, of course forcibly, but now we have children. I don't want to mention here in the public, but those were what we called it turbulent times during Obote II. Turbulent times. Then we had also the axis of Uganda. The axis of Uganda, thinking that Obote ought not to be a leader. Why? Yes, while he was Muko to them and whatever, but going back to the 60s and the way I read history, Obote generally was hated here in Uganda for having failed His Majesty the Kabaka by, I think, 1966 or so. If we go back to history, I don't want to delve into a lot of history then, but these are known facts. So generally, it was not likable. This is why Uganda became a hub of all opposition, armed opposition. We had the Kaira's group, we had the Kwanga's group, we had even Museveni was not a Muganda, but was welcomed here to make a face-off with Obote at the time. Now, that gave fertile ground of rebel activity within here, but of course led by Moa Museveni at the time. I liked Museveni from 1980. I remember it was December when we went to elections. I was not yet a voting age, but I voted. I must say I voted. And I received the canes for that. Canes for that.
Rigging started way back 1980s.
Oh, yes. Imagine a child of about 15 or 14. I voted.
You
and
took yourself there or the people in the system.
Rigging, you may not clearly say rigging the way you do things these days. No, not the case. That one I would disagree because I saw with my own eyes. But the willingness to vote, unlike today, where you have 100 voters and only 30 or 40 vote. At the time, it was a struggle. Everybody by 4 a.m. they were out lining up to go and vote. You see, but because I liked Museveni at the time, young, handsome, and I had to forge away. Later on,
you left the rhetorical man.
No, I didn't, because I think having been a child, I liked one who was within my age.
You wanted a generation leader.
Exactly. So I voted for UPM and I voted for Museveni at the time. I still have my card, which I was given at the time clandestinely. I have it with me at the time. So we are all the cadres of this movement, of course, unrecognized heroes, but we are there. So basically, the questions you asked me was for me to delve a bit into history. The way I saw. Not what historians or politicians have written. There are cases when distortions are made, including given by President Museveni himself. There are distortions, very many of them, because I'm an ardent reader of what he has written, especially if you read his book, The Mustard Seed. You check it, Amon, you will see how President Museveni details the history of this country and the history of the struggles. It is. But there are cases where I think he gets biased. Of course, as a human being, he can do that, by the way. And he would wish to blame more the other side because having been belligerents, they were fighting so hard to do that kind of thing. I wish to end with Amon. I will talk about why we celebrate this day. And several years down the road, over
37 years.
Over 3.5 decades. Yes, it is. To me, I like using the word revolution. Revolution over 10 years. Once the social change, political, social, and economic change takes a time of 10 years, a decade, then we can call it a revolution.
All right.
And it qualifies.
Interesting.
Yeah,
we are glad that we have been part of the discussion because we wanted such testimonies of I saw. Not I've read, not I've heard, but I saw gives me the confidence that indeed what we're discussing is not only genuine but also educating and inspiring the people of Uganda. Michael Fupa, you've heard from Honorable John Musila. Musila.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah. Let's
or
get
Rastaman, if you wish.
Rastaman. Interesting.
Very comfortable with that.
Fupa,
Yes, please.
Honorable says I saw, and has given a testimony of what happened then.
Yes.
Was it necessary for Museveni to go to the bush, according to you, or would have opted for other means?
Thank you, Aman. Whether it was necessary or not necessary for now President Museveni to go to the bush, it may not for me to answer. But what I know is that every other president or any other leader who comes into power will always give you the reasons why they came or why they wanted maybe change to occur. So for President Museveni, going to the bush to fight and become victorious in 1986 on 26, he had reasons. And I remember if you read in the 10-point program, he narrates, he gives about 10 issues that actually propelled him and his other colleagues to go to the bush. But I wanted to add on slightly on what Honorable Musila has said. If you look at the history of Uganda, now it's what I've read and the little that I also saw, is that after getting independence in 1962, we had a lot of issues. If you look at the genesis or when we got independence, you find that it seems at certain point all our leaders were not well prepared. So when it came, it so happened that these leaders who had got independence could not sit down properly, agree on a number of issues, and therefore move. That's why you hear there are issues of, because here you get that there were traditional leaders who were monarchists, but then being brought into power with the people who were having an overall look at the whole country. So when you mixed these people, there was bound to be a clash as it happened, and therefore we experienced the 1966 crisis where President Obote and I think his other colleagues, banned the kingdoms, as it were. And that was, I think, also the beginning of so many other problems. But without going too much within what happened, I understand that sometime there were utterances like UPC should carry, it should take away its seat from Buganda and go wherever they go. But we are declared ourselves as being a one country. So those problems happened. However, there were significant achievements that were achieved during, I would say, Obote I government. There were good hospitals. There were a number of good things that happened. However, within the intrigue that was within the people within Uganda and also from without, because the colonialists who had left us had not left us completely. They come in and they back who became the president then, Idi Amin. But this is a person who I know had a military background, but was not, I say, so much literate, probably about so many other issues. So when they back such a person against Dr. Obote, you saw the problems that happened. The Asians are driven away. Many things collapse. We are put on an embargo. They ban things. And therefore, Uganda started experiencing economic and many other social problems. So as you come, those of President Yoweri Museveni, the Obotes, and other colleagues who had ran outside, of course, now conspire, or they arrange to come and take over Idi Amin, and which happened, I think, was it in April? April 11th, 1979. So these people also again come in, but as Honorable Musila has already mentioned, they were in so many groups. And because of those groups, because of, I think, the ego, everybody wanted to have also a cake, everybody wanted to be an important person. But within that confusion, the security of Uganda was not good at all. And remember, because of the economic situation that we had, these people could not have the resources that they could use to unite the people of Uganda together. What I remember vividly was the issue of the breakdown of security. In 1979, after the takeover, I remember in the Bugisu region, we used to have people, our brothers, actually I call them brothers because they are neighbors to Bugisu. They would come, pick probably some millet, pick some things, because for them they were basically pastoralists. They would pick these things in exchange and go back. However, in 79, after the collapse of Amin's regime, I understand those brothers got hands on the guns that were in the barracks, I think Moroto and others that were there. Now the region was set on fire. And because of that, the security situation in Uganda, I remember, in the Obote II regime was actually very, very bad. And you remember, by then there were so many roadblocks, and going through these roadblocks was not easy. Honorable Musila has mentioned about the soldiers who thought, and actually who had, it seems, all the powers. They would rape, they would do anything. They would take things from you. At one time, I was in...
Fupa, for your information.
Yes, please.
In 1983, I was in S2. And that was the first time at Mbale Bus Park when I witnessed somebody being shot dead and I saw somebody dying.
Sure.
By a soldier.
Yeah,
by a soldier.
By soldier.
Because the soldier wanted just a cigarette.
Supposed to protect the people.
Yes, a soldier wanted a cigarette,
yeah,
and the man had no money to give. He shot him.
So
a cigarette.
So to
Yes,
as the Honorable Musila mentioned, so there was total breakdown in the security of the people and the property. So the soldiers were like roaming. They would do anything. It seems they had all within their powers, and because of that, I think that is what caused a lot of hate on Obote II's government. Of course, there were so many presidents who came in there. There was Rule, there was Binaisa, there was the military commission by Mwanga, and then Museveni himself. So there were quite people who were coming one after the other. And I remember actually the security situation was so bad. One time I was telling a story when I was Kamu's Market, and by then I was also young. And this soldier comes and you know, in these markets, people are selling trousers and clothes. So he tells, patia hii, get me this, get me that. And he threw, I think, some very
with
little
money.
money.
Was ordering because he had power.
No money, man. He just picks those things. And if you are lucky, he would give you maybe some money to buy a cigarette or say kitu kidogo kenda kula kitu nataka. So things were so bad. So I would say that Uganda actually since independence and slightly after when it came to a Amin's regime and things came, I think the situation was a bit chaotic. And that's why you find that, for example, when you tell people that we have reason, for example, to celebrate this Liberation Day on 26th, I think I will put my ideas and points later by giving probably what happened before and what is happening now, so that we can understand better whether it is really necessary to celebrate this day or not to celebrate.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, and most welcome. Thank you for that detailed kind of explanation about the history of this country, because we are here not to repeat the mistakes that we did in the past. Dr. Ranga, having heard from Mafupa and Honorable Musila, you were in the government, you are of the man, Dr. Milton Obote. He knew you very well and you knew him very well. According to Honorable Musila, Obote was not meant to be a leader according to the Uganda faction. To me, this was the second time you were in government as UPC. You had had a government before in Obote 1. To me, repeating the same mistakes, it seems you had learnt nothing and forgotten nothing. But what was the basis of this? How would you also put into context of what happened in Obote 2 to have Uganda come to a point of liberation in 1986, taking people in the bush to fight for the rights of the people, to fight that impunity that was there? What was the cause of that impunity? Was the government not paying the soldiers, or the people, or things had gotten out of hands of the then president, Dr. Milton Obote? Dr. Ranga.
Oh, thanks very much for giving me such an opportunity, and maybe an opportunity which can put a record more straight and more clear. Uganda's problem did not start with Obote, neither did they start yesterday, or will they end tomorrow, but we are very hopeful that we can solve the problems. Our problems are more related to the colonial legacy. And this colonial legacy is a very big challenge which Obote and the team of those founding fathers tried to solve in a certain manner. I would say that by the time we got independence on 9th October 1962, imperialism, to be specific, British imperialism, had lived with us 68 years. But that imperialism put a written law or unwritten law that my brother Musila from Bugisu does not interact with a Musamia in his neighborhood. That was the starting point of everything. And then from there, they even exaggerated that the North does not meet the South. Okay? They even exaggerated within the South that there are those who command a special privileged position, and that is Buganda Kingdom. And within the Buganda Kingdom, they again exaggerated that there is the Bakungu, all Owechitiwa, all the lords, and there is the commoners, the Mukopi, the Muwejere, who don't rise above. Okay, so we inherited independence when we were a divided nation, but we worked towards unity, and the Kabaka and the Mengo establishment really bought the idea of independence, despite having issues in between with his subjects, including me, who were saying, no, this independence, what does it mean? If it is independence, let us get our own. And on several occasions, Buganda declared independence, yes, before the normal one on 9th October 1962. And even up to now, there are elements within Kabaka and Mengo establishment who insist that Buganda got independence on 8th October 1962. I stand here to clarify that situation. There was no independence for Buganda on 8th October 1962. The independence.
How did it come about?
There was no way it could come out. It could come about because what happened, if we go back to the Lancaster discussions gave Buganda a choice that go and for the first time in your history, conduct elections for unelected Ruchiko, which was 68 constituencies. And that election should be based on plural politics. When you have fully elected, Kabaka and his establishment and the elected MPs of Ruchiko should sit down and decide on how they should have the MPs to the National Assembly, whether it is by direct or indirect. And in February 1962, when they held their elections and then decided to have that decision, the decision favored indirect elections. And the Kabaka and Menge establishment was given a leeway to elect the 21 MPs. Okay, so that is how it came that Buganda did their own elections for the Ruchiko for the first time, and then did their indirect elections for the National Assembly. But when you look at the Constitution of 1962, it is very clear under which areas Kabaka and Mengo independent and establishment have full autonomy and where they don't have autonomy. Issues of foreign affairs, issues of defense, issues of finance, they never had autonomy. It was care of central government. So those who bring that mix, they don't understand that history. And if anything, when the instruments of power are being given, they were not being given to Sir Edward Mutesa. They were being given to Dr. Apple Milton Obote in Kololo airstrip. And the cousin,
as a prime minister.
Yes, and the cousin of the late queen who gave those instruments is even still alive. Sure. Okay, so this sort of confusion which they bring up is to confuse the younger generation and the old generation, which does not focus to follow issues. Then also we have to remember that the Kabaka of Buganda became a president of Uganda very much later after independence. So that should at least answer your question. So as I was still saying that we came from that background, and that constitution somehow tied our hands, where we had a semi-federal system in the south and a total republic in the north, and we are now together in one pot. Now, the challenges which came was when we are to have a president for Uganda. Of course, we have to thank Nkwame Nkrumah, who helped us very much in drafting the laws in the parliament and sent us a special person who can help in the drafting of laws. We managed to draft the laws. The Governor General, Sir Walter Coates, who was now representing the Queen as the president, was switched off. And now we decided to go for our president. And our leader, through his vision, said this thing should follow the cultural leaders, okay, on the political leaders. Now, Mugabe wanted it. Jabazinga wanted it. Omukama wanted it. Even within UPC, some UPC people wanted it very desperately. Like there was a Kalamajongo who wanted it also, and even stood. Then Obote tried to explain to them that we have made an alliance with the KY. And having made an alliance with the Kabaka Yeka, alliance means to hold on something. It is prudent enough if Mutesa held on that in the context of the alliance.
Divide and rule.
It is not a divide, it is a national and the nation
away from independence and what we really inherited.
Yes.
The youth are more interested in knowing what was the impunity, the cause of impunity then, that people would lose lives on streets by the national soldiers who were meant to protect them.
The youth may not understand it at that time because you have never heard of UPC and the DP campaigning for violence. They have been always campaigning for peaceful means to resolve the confusion. But my brother, Honorable Musra, when he was campaigning in 1980, he promised to go to the bush. He promised to fight. So,
because things had turned the other way around.
Having a platform which makes fighting as the next move, it complicates settlement of political issues. And in any case, are those issues worth that? Have we seen more better elections or have we seen more worse elections? Do you think we are docile as DP? Do you think we are docile as UPC that we cannot go to the bush and use the same excuse? But as we feel, nation building and nationalism is more important through dialogue than firing guns.
Why don't you call them sevens on table when waging a war?
You better educate the youth you are representing that these all the traditional ideological political parties stake more in dialogue than in political activism. But they have never left the trenches. We have never left the trenches. Anytime we can come out of the trenches. But now that you gave us our voice, our political parties and platforms, we can leave you.
Can engage.
And we engage better.
All right.
Someone would say that NRM also, to have some elements of violence, they must have inherited it from the predecessors. Yes, Honorable Msila.
Let me tell you this. In this country, I didn't know much about up to 70s when Amini took over, because I was about 4 or 5 years by 1971. But my young man, Amon, the moment we are going to give you wrong history, then we are breeding grounds for, again, violence within your own generation. And now that you are even much more, mature. At the time, my brother, doctor, and many others were few. Today, this population is much younger. Actually, the youngest on the African continent, or even the world.
Even the world, yeah. It's even the world.
There are all serious governments, Amon. The UPC government, with the Common Man's Charter, they move to the left. A document declared with UPC under UPC conference, 1968 or 69?
69.
69.
December.
All right.
An old man, because of my discussions, there is an old man who gave me that copy. Yes, you can Google and what, but I have the original copy. Blue, light blue. I have it with me. I've read it thoroughly. And I compared it with the second serious government, the NRM government, with the 10-point program. I'm in parliament as an independent because, again, of the dynamics of my party, which I don't want to mention here, but Fupa knows. Fupa knows very well.
Was there some rigging?
Of course. And openly so, and somebody held a gun at me in the Tale Center. And yet it's the same party in the primaries. So people convinced me to come as an independent. But those are dynamics within the party. Now,
Right.
so there are two governments, UPC government and NRM government. Those are the only serious governments we have had in this country.
Okay.
UPC may have taken a short time, which is not quite short because this was about 15 years in government. Yes, NRM has taken about 35. But you know, inheriting an almost failed state, I have nothing, I don't blame doctor, my brother doctor, no. UPC did what it did. Let me tell you, at the time, you must have read about the African coups. The foreign influence on the continent was too heavy. When Amin took over in this country, he had only about 600 soldiers. And I think the total population, we had 4,000, but he used only 600. It is in these same studios that they came to declare that they had taken over government. Here, where we are sitting. And I want to say, did he do it alone? No. A man come to train police in Uganda called Colonel Balev actually escorted him and told him, do this, do that. Colonel Balev, an Israelite. You see? But he had come quietly, purportedly to train the police and whatever. So the 60s, 70s, 80s, the arm of the former colonialist was very heavy. What happens with Amin? Amin, you know, my brother Fupa said Amin was illiterate. No, he was not. He had been a player. In Kenya, he had been there, in Mau Mau, in Karamoja. Karamoja did not start today. When you hear Karamoja, actually they have developed. For now, they have developed heavily. Otherwise, even during the colonial times, the Karamojongs were not fought down, were not brought down by the colonial government. It is only President Museveni and the NRM government who have managed that region. If you go to a place called Magoro, one of the IDP, internally displaced Itesots of around Ngariam, and today we call that district what?
Because of the
Katakwi.
Karamajong.
You will get the oldest. You are journalists, visit there. And by the way, these IDP, they were built so well, grassy thatch, in 1955. They are still there. I've visited them. I've known where they are. In Magoro, Katakwi district. When you go there, you will see them, they are there. Why? Because of the Karamajong fact at the time using bows and arrows and spears. So the Karamajong question is not a new question. It's only NRM which has. Now, my brother doctor...
Finally on that, Honorable.
Yes. My brother said UPM and Museveni already promised to go to the bush. True. Because first, like I told you, Amon, the factions at the time within the army. Today, if you read very well, you will understand that Obote's army, called Kikosi Maalum, commanded by Wakina Okelos and Oito Jok, were only 1,500 from Tanzania, that conglomerate. Now, Museveni and Fronasa and others, the younger group at the time, your type, were about 9,000 by the time they arrived in Kampala on 11th of April 1979. So, who commanded more? It is Museveni. In any case, Museveni was even Minister of Defense. Museveni had fought on the front, and he knew the dynamics. He knew the chaos. He had been the vice president, what they called military commission. But actually the commission was, to me, a presidence of three. Three people being presidents at a go. So President Museveni became a president before he went to the bush. You see? Before he went to the bush. So this is the history we should give you.
All right.
So that you know. Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
wanted to add on something.
In seconds, Fupa, before I go for a break.
Okay, I just what I wanted to add on is that I appreciate the way my brothers, the way they were discussing this issue of our history in Uganda and probably how we have evolved up to where we are now. There are quite a number of people who do not understand how things have evolved, and because of that, they sometimes want to misrepresent. But if you look at the situation then, and what would one have done, you find that some of the answers or the solutions were fit for that period of time. But things have changed, and therefore we have to look at things differently. Right. So I just wanted to add, Amon, that Uganda, we will reach wherever we want to go when we appreciate our elders, the people who brought Uganda from where it is, when it came from the hands of the colonialists, and then we became independent. Actually, independence, by the way, to some extent, is a bit, independence means that you would be independent in many things. The thing that we got at that time was that now this white man had actually left us to run the affairs of our country alone, but there were so many things, so many attachments that these people were still driving us in. And because of that confusion, as Dr. mentioned, is what led Uganda to have the confusion. But I hope as we review and look at our history, we will be in a better position to prescribe the medicine for a better Uganda as we move on.
Interesting.
Also give me a brief minute and I clarify one situation.
Yes, in seconds.
The situation I can clarify, the rules and the games, the rules of the game which was governing in 1978-79 war were very clear, that no Kadogo to participate in the war and no reserve to participate in the war. So the opportunity to participate in war was more pronounced on the side of Chikosi Chamarum, because Chikosi Chamarum was first trained in Owinyichiburu and it had been part of the old Uganda army. Even my party president, Honorable Jim Akena, wanted to participate and was told, you are not yet 18. You cannot participate. So that brings the question which our founding father used to put up, that if you claim you fought, where are your generals? If you claim you fought, which are the towns you captured? If you claim you fought, show us where you did the battle. But our friends misunderstood it, that he wanted to intimidate. He was bringing the history of the war to everybody in crystal clear. He knew who were in the trenches. He knew who drowned in the Lake Victoria. But here we came back, 1978, each one was calling himself a liberator. Even when he has just recruited soldiers on the way, and who by law were not supposed to fight. And indeed, they never fought. That is the clarification I want.
We're having a very interesting discussion. Knowing history is important. This reminds me of some proverb that history is not the past, but a map of the past drawn from a particular point of view to be useful to the modern traveler. And I believe that most of the youth today who were never there then must utilize the elders by taking into context of that history, knowing where we have come from, because if we know where we've come from, we are sure of where we are and where we are heading. I'm going for a very short break. When I return, I'm going to come with your calls and messages. You can call us on 776-511-426. That is the number to call, on 0776-511-426. Or you can send your messages on 0701 24 26 47. 0701 24 26 47. That was the first discussion in the first hour of this edition of Ground Zero, looking at the history and how far we came from. And in the second hour, we're going to look at some of the achievements that have been realized by the national resistance movement, what the journey has been of the 37 years. And we look at some of things that they have not accomplished according to their promise they made on the 29th January at Parliament of Uganda. By the popular speech of President Museveni, the fundamental change. UBC Ground Zero goes for a very short break, and we're coming back in a bit. Don't you go away.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
A commodity.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
At UBC Radio, all our radio network across the country is committed to inform, entertain, educate and guide for national transformation.
Our own radio, UBC, should set its own example. Leka bano abatafa ku bantu baffe bagumaza ndowooza muganda kito kugumaza to divert people. Let our own UBC bring programs to educate the people so that abagala kugumaza babeereyo bagumaza naye naffe they can advise, guide. And people in time will judge the one who is their friend and who is just using them.
Tune into UBC Radios for credible socio-economic programs. UBC, inspiring Uganda. Don't miss UBC Radio Ground Zero every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Sunday celebrations under the theme, our resolute efforts to transform Uganda is a promise we shall fulfill. The president will be the chief guest of honor, and it is going to take place in Kakumiludi district. I hope all of us are going to enjoy this kind of celebration this time. From all of us at UBC, we wish you all the best. Until next time, same program, a different topic to though, and I wish you all the best from all of us at UBC. We love you for God and my country. I'm Paide Amon Obtega. Allow me now to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
This is Independent Sound.
UBC has 11 sister radio stations spread throughout the country to educate, inform, and entertain. Tune in to UBC Radio FM 98, your national radio station, Magic 100, where sports and music is our life. 87.5 Star FM in Uganda. 97.4 UBC West, covering Western Uganda. 102 Mega FM in Gulu. 97 FM Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda. 107.0 Bududi FM. 100.5 Ngea FM in Kasese, 98.0 West Nile FM in Arua, Total Ray Radio FM 90 in Karamoja, and 93.0 Voice of Mundbujo. Now you're covered in your local language. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda. UBC Radio 98 FM in Mukono, Hoima, Masindi, Masaka, Sironko, Kalangala, and Jinja. UBC Radio,